The heat was rising from the pit of my stomach, spreading through my veins like liquid lead. I couldn't breathe. The luxury Manhattan hotel suite spun before my eyes, blurring into a single, shimmering haze. Richard loomed over me, the man I had been smilingly discussing. Multi-million-dollar investments with just 30 minutes ago in the ballroom below. His perfect, media-trained smile had twisted into a predatory sneer. He pinned my wrists roughly to the silk sheets, his hot breath scalding my neck. I tried to scream, but only a weak, pathetic whimper escaped my throat. The pill he'd slipped into my champagne wasn't just paralyzing. My willet was turning my body into a traitor. It acted as a powerful aphrodisiac, igniting a wild, primal fire inside me that my clouded mind desperately tried to fight. "You know you want this, Evelyn. Your body doesn't lie," he whispered, crudely tearing at my designer dress, a piece that cost more than the average American family earns in a year. I felt like a piece of meat, a helpless doll in the hands of a powerful monster. Tears of terror and helplessness rolled down my cheeks. I closed my eyes, bracing for the worst, when suddenly a deafening crash echoed through the room. The heavy doors burst open. Strong hands grabbed Richard by the collar of his expensive tuxedo and flung him across the room, with incredible force, sending him crashing onto a glass coffee table. The sound of shattering glass was followed by the billionaire's pathetic groan. From that second on, my life was forever split into before and after. My name is Evelyn Carter. If you live on the East Coast, you've definitely seen my skyscrapers. At 26, I inherited my father's construction empire and turned it into a ruthless money-making machine. I was used to controlling everything: contractors, mayors, the press. In my world, there was no room for weakness, sentimentality, or accidents. Every minute of my day was scheduled. Every deal was calculated to the penny. I lived in an impenetrable armor of cold, politeness, business savvy, and expensive power suits, truly believing I was invincible. That night in New York was supposed to be another triumph. It was a private charity gala for the most influential people in America. I was there for Richard, a man whose signature on a contract could open the door to the decade's biggest project, a massive urban development. I smiled, sipped sparkling wine, and played by their rules. How could I, a powerful woman who made gray-haired moguls sweat during tough negotiations, imagine that the most dangerous predator was hiding behind the mask of a respected gentleman? He had simply offered to drink to our future partnership and invited me to a quieter room to discuss the details. I always thought status and a bank account made me untouchable. I thought the worst thing that could happen to me was a drop in stock prices. But when the doors of that VIP suite closed, neither my millions nor my famous last name mattered. I was just prey, and it wasn't my elite security team, who were waiting downstairs, nor my business associates who saved me. Through the fog of the drug, I tried to focus on my savior. He stood over me, breathing hard. He was wearing a cheap white shirt and a standard service staff badge. A simple waiter, who must have overheard my muffled cry in the hallway and risked his job and his freedom to kick down the door of one of the country's most powerful men. The chemistry in my blood was raging. My mind screamed danger, but my body, poisoned by the pill, was burning and demanding a touch. I tried to sit up, my hands shaking, my heart hammering so hard it felt like it would break my ribs. I tried to breathe, but it felt like my lungs were filling with hot wax. The waiter, I could barely make out his features in the dim light of the suite, approached the bed cautiously. He didn't look at my half-naked body with lust. In his eyes, there was only a genuine, almost childlike fear and deep concern. "Lady, are you okay? Should I call an ambulance?" His voice was low and gravelly, trembling. From the adrenaline, I wanted to say yes. I wanted to beg for help, but the pill Richard had slipped me finally took total control over my being. I felt an electric charge surge across my skin. The world narrowed down to this one man in front of me. His kindness, his brave act in my poised mind, it all transformed into a single object of desperate desire. I suddenly grabbed his hand, pulling him toward me. He tried to pull back, stammering something, but I wasn't listening. My lips found his, and in that moment, I didn't care about status, about tomorrow, or the fact that he was just a guy in a cheap uniform. It was a night of madness, a pure, uncontrollable fire. In the heat of our passion, my fingers tangled in a chain around his neck. I felt something cold and hard. It was a strange medallion. 2 flat, gray stones, like sea-worn pebbles, joined together by a crude metal clasp. In a rush of desperation and blurred ecstasy, I yanked on the chain. It snapped. One of the stones remained in my clenched fist, while the other stayed on his neck. I didn't even notice it back then. The next morning, I woke up in an empty room. The sun was mercilessly pouring through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the wreckage, shattered glass, a torn dress, and a single flat stone on the nightstand. The waiter was gone. Richard was gone. My security team, who had finally woken up, informed me that Richard had fled the country to avoid a scandal, and the waiter, he had simply vanished. He'd been hired through an agency for one night only under a fake name. No contacts, no traces. 6 weeks later, the test in my hand showed 2 lines. 5 years passed. I became even tougher. My company, Carter Development, now owned half of Manhattan. I was raising Maya, my little mirror image, but with eyes I'd only seen once in my life on that fateful night. Maya was my life, my only vulnerability. I told no one about her father. To the world, she was the result of a brief romance with a European aristocrat. One scorching July, I was forced to inspect our most problematic site, a social housing project in Brooklyn. Work was delayed. The budget was being drained. I brought Maya with me because I'd promised her a day at the park after the meeting. We stood amidst the dust, concrete, and the roar of machinery. The head supervisor, a man named Elisa's slimy type with a fake smile, was showering me with compliments, making excuses for the delays. "Miss Carter, you understand, this crowd? Lazy workers, constant complaints." He nodded toward a group of men in dirty overalls eating lunch on the steel beams. Suddenly, Maya, usually a quiet child, stopped dead and tugged at my hand. "Mommy, look!" She pointed her little finger at one of the workers. A man sat apart from the others, wiping sweat from his brow. He was tanned dark by the sun. His hands were covered in calluses, but around his neck, on an old piece of twine, hung a familiar object, a single, flat stone. "Mommy, he has the same stone as the one in your jewelry box," Maya cried out loud, enough for the whole site to hear. I froze. My heart skipped a beat. It was him, the same guy, from the hotel. Only now he looked older, exhausted, with deep lines etched around his eyes. Elias, noticing my gaze, barked irritably. "Leo, tuck that junk away and get back to work. What are you staring at the lady for?" Leo, now I knew his name, quickly tucked the medallion under his shirt and lowered his head. He didn't even recognize me. To him, I was just another wealthy owner arriving for an inspection. "Miss Carter, don't mind him," Elias continued to fawn. "He's the most problematic worker, always asking for advances, making up stories about a sick mother. I haven't paid him in 3 months, fining him for disciplinary issues. He needs to know his place." Leo approached Elias, his voice quiet but steady. "Sir, please, I don't need the fines. My mother needs her medicine today. You promised to pay at least part of what you owe." Elias just laughed in his face. "Your mother will die in poverty just like you'll live your worthless life, Leo. Now get out of my sight before I fire you without a cent." I looked at Leo and saw in his eyes the same pain I had seen 5 years ago when he saved me from Richard. But now he was the one who needed saving. I felt paralyzed. The heat, the roar of the concrete mixers, Elias's disgusting voice, it all faded into the background. I stared at Leo and saw a mirror image of my daughter in his features. The same stubborn set of his lips, the same line of his jaw. My confidence in my own invincibility crumbled like a sandcastle hit by the tide. Suddenly, the world was pierced by my own scream. "Maya!" I didn't react in time. My daughter, exhausted by the heat and the suffocating air of the construction site, swayed. Her eyes rolled back and she began to fall straight toward the jagged edge of a steel rebar. I was too far away. Elias was closer, but he only gasped in terror and shut his eyes. But Leo. He reacted faster than lightning. He practically threw himself across a concrete beam, scraping his elbows to the bone, and caught Maya a mere inch from the metal spikes. He gently laid her down on his dusty shirt in the shade of a pillar. "Water! Fast!" he shouted, his voice filled with such genuine, agonizing worry, as if he were saving the most precious thing in the world. I ran to them, falling to my knees, my trembling hands pulling my daughter to me. Maya began to come around. She opened her eyes and whispered, "Mommy, it's the man with the stone. He's kind." I looked up at Leo. Our eyes met. For a split second, I thought he recognized me. A flash of that distant night in the hotel flickered in his gaze, but he immediately looked away. He was too beaten down by life, too humiliated by his poverty, to believe that the great Evelyn Carter was the same girl he had once held in his arms. "Thank you!" I managed to choke out, a lump forming in my throat. I wanted to pull out my checkbook right then and there, write him a 6-figure sum, fire Elias, change everything. But my deputy, Marcus, who was accompanying me, pushed his way in. "Miss Carter, don't get so close to these people. It's dangerous. This guy is a known troublemaker. Elias is. Right, he's just trying to show off to squeeze some money out of you." "He saved my daughter," I snapped, standing up. "It's his job to maintain safety on the site." Marcus cut me off coldly. "Elias, handle this. Miss Carter, we have to go. You have a board meeting in an hour." I was forced to leave, but I couldn't forget Leo's eyes. That same night, I ordered my lawyers to audit every financial report from that site. I sensed something was wrong, but I had no idea how deep my own company was mired in filth. The next morning, as I was preparing to return to the site with documents to personally pay Leo his salary and offer help for his mother, my phone exploded with messages. "Evelyn, we have a problem." Marcus's voice on the line was urgent. "There's been a theft at the Brooklyn site. Expensive tools and lift parts worth hundreds of thousands are missing. And guess whose locker they found them in?" My heart sank into an abyss. "Leo? Exactly. Your hero. The police are already there. They say he tried to pawn the pots this morning to pay for his mother's emergency surgery. It's over for him, Evelyn. He's going away for years." I raced to the site. I knew it was a setup. The Leo who risked himself for Maya couldn't be a thief. But when I arrived, the scene was horrific. The police were pinning Leo down. He was on his knees in the dirt, his shirt torn, and that same medallion with the single stone hanging from his neck. Elias stood nearby with a smug grin, holding a bag open to reveal the stolen parts. I told You, Miss Carter, he spat as I approached. Poverty is a disease. He only saved your daughter so you'd let your guard down. Leo raised his head. His face was bloodied. He looked me straight in the eye, not with a plea for help, but with deep, limitless disappointment. He thought I was part of the conspiracy. He thought I had ordered this frame-up to get rid of the witness to my shame from 5 years ago. I didn't steal, he whispered, his lips trembling. My mother. She won't make it without me. At that moment, Marcus leaned into my ear. Evelyn, don't you dare interfere. If you defend him now, the shareholders will think you're involved or that you're having an affair with a laborer. It will destroy the company's reputation. Just let the police do their job. I stood caught between two fires, the empire I had built for years and the man who gave me my daughter and saved me twice. A police officer suddenly yanked the chain from Leo's neck, and the stone, the other half of our shared secret, flew into the mud at my boots. I didn't think. At that moment, the cold, calculated businesswoman Evelyn Carter died, and a woman whose heart had just been ripped to shreds was born. I lunged forward, diving straight into the mud, ignoring my $3,000 shoes. I grabbed that stone, pressing it into my palm so hard the sharp edges cut into my skin. Let him go. My scream sliced through the air, forcing the officers to freeze in their tracks. Evelyn, have you lost your mind? Marcus ran toward me, trying to grab my shoulder. The cameras are already here. Reporters are just around the corner. You're destroying everything we built, this dirty thief. I spun around and shoved Marcus with such force he nearly lost his footing. He isn't the thief, Marcus. You are? I pulled a small velvet box from my blazer pocket, something I had carried with me every single day for the last 5 years. I opened it and pulled out the other half of the medallion. In front of everyone, the police, the workers, the speechless Eliasai joined the two stones together. They fit perfectly, like two pieces of a broken heart finally finding their way home. Leo looked at my hand, and in his pain-filled eyes, recognition finally sparked. His lips silently formed the words, "It was you." Miss Carter, this proves nothing, Elias shrieked, backing away toward his car. The items were found in his locker? He's a criminal. Police, take him away. At that moment, Leo's battered old phone fell from his pocket. The screen lit up with an incoming call. Hospital, ICU. The police officer hesitated and then hit the speakerphone. Mr. Miller? The doctor's voice was cold and professional. I'm afraid time is up. Since the payment for your mother's heart surgery didn't hit our account by noon, we've been forced to postpone the procedure. I'm afraid her condition is too unstable to wait until tomorrow. I'm sorry. Leo let out a sound I will never forget. It wasn't just a cry. It was the howl of a wounded animal who had lost its last hope. He collapsed face first into the mud, despite the handcuffs, losing any reason to keep fighting. The amount? I snatched the phone from the officer's hand. How much do you need? $200,000, ma'am, but the money will be in your account in 30 seconds. I was already dialing my CFO, ignoring Marcus, who stood beside me, white as a sheet. You can't do this, Marcus hissed. If you pay, you're admitting a connection to him. The shareholders will eat you alive. You'll lose the company, Evelyn. This is your legacy. I looked at Marcus, then at Elias, who was trying to slip into his car unnoticed, and then at Leo, the man who saved my honor 5 years ago and saved my child's life yesterday, only to receive nothing but contempt and a prison cell from my company. To hell with the legacy, I said quietly, but loud enough for the press microphones to catch every word. Marcus, you're fired. Elias, you too. And now, officers, If you don't take those handcuffs off him right now, I'll call the best lawyers in New York, and by tonight, this precinct will be a daycare center because you'll all lose your licenses." The officers, rattled by my intensity, began to unlock the cuffs. Leo rose slowly, wiping blood and dirt from his face. His eyes searched for Maya, who was standing by the car under guard. But in that moment, Marcus, realizing he was losing everything, his career, his millions, his power, did one last desperate thing. "You think you've won, Evelyn? You're giving it all to this beggar." He pulled a folder of documents from his pocket. "Here is the proof that this construction was done with. Violations you signed off on. If I'm going down, I'm taking you with me. This whole building. It's built on sand." Suddenly, a deafening crack echoed above our heads. The massive construction crane, which Elias had been cutting costs on for months, shuddered. One of the steel beams, the very one Leo had begged to be replaced yesterday, snapped. The entire multi-ton nightmare began to tilt slowly, directly toward the part of the site where I, Marcus, and the car where Maya sat were standing. "Maya!" My scream was swallowed by the roar of falling metal. The roar was like the sky splitting in two. I froze, watching the multi-ton steel beam fall like a guillotine toward the black SUV where my daughter was locked in the back seat. Time slowed down. I could see Maya's terrified face through the glass, her tiny palms pressed against the window. I tried to run, but my legs felt like they were rooted into the scorching asphalt. But Leo didn't hesitate for a single second. With broken ribs, bloodied and battered, he lunged toward the car with the kind of speed only a person driven by pure love is capable of. He didn't try to stop the beam. That was impossible. He ripped the door open, grabbed Maya, and literally threw her aside onto a pile of sand, shielding her with his own body just a fraction of a second before the steel crushed the roof of the car into a pancake. A pillar of dust rose, blinding everything. I fell to my knees, tearing my hands on the stones, and screamed until my voice broke. "Maya! Leo!" A few seconds passed that felt like an eternity. A cough emerged from beneath the cloud of gray dust. Then he appeared. Leo was standing up, carrying Maya in his arms. She was crying, but she was whole. He was covered in cement dust, fresh blood trickling from a wound on his forehead, but he held her tight, whispering, "It's okay, little one. It's okay. I'm here." I flew to them, hugging them both at once. My expensive suits, my reputation, my millions, it all burned away in the fire of that moment. All that remained was the two of us and our child. Marcus tried to flee, taking advantage of the chaos, but the workers who had endured his abuse for years and had just witnessed Leo's heroism blocked his path. The police who, only minutes ago, had Leo in handcuffs were now snapping them onto the wrists of Marcus and Elias. The documents Marcus had tried to use to blackmail me turned out to be his own death warrant. They contained records of all his embezzlement schemes, the very reason the crane had become a death trap. 3 months passed. I am standing on the terrace of my new home overlooking Central Park. But this is no longer my cold skyscraper. It's a place that smells of home-cooked food and echoes with the sound of a child's laughter. Leo's mother successfully underwent her surgery. The money I transferred in that final second saved her life. Now, she sits in the living room, showing Maya how to properly join the 2 stones on the chain. I've felt strong arms wrap around me from behind. Leo, he is no longer a waiter or a laborer. He became my partner not only in life, but in business. He runs a foundation helping children whose parents have suffered from corruption in the construction industry. He remains the same kind, humble man, but the pain and fear I saw at the construction site have vanished from his eyes. "What are you thinking about?" he asked softly, kissing the top of my head. "About how?" "Sometimes you have to lose everything to find what truly matters," I replied, turning to face him. I pulled the medallion from my pocket. Now, both stones were fused together with solid gold. "Do you know what your mom told me?" I whispered. "She said these stones are a legend about a divided soul. That when God creates a person, he sometimes splits their strength in half so they can find their other part through trials." I looked over at Maya, who was excitedly explaining something to her grandmother at the other end of the room, waving her hands exactly like her father. The world saw me as the Iron Lady, Evelyn Carter, who built an empire. But no one knew that the real construction only began when I let my heart break so that a waiter with a medallion could put it back together. We went through hell, through betrayal and poverty, to realize one truth. The strongest foundation in life isn't built of concrete, but of truth and mercy. Tonight, we are finally opening that same housing complex in Brooklyn, but now a different name is carved in large letters across its facade. Not mine. The project is called Guardian, in honor of the man who saved me, even when I didn't know I needed saving. I hope this story reminds everyone, even when you are on your knees in the mud and the whole world is against you, don't let go of your medallion. Your truth will always find its way to the light.